Welcome to the MamasteFit Podcast Birth Story Friday. In this birth story, Monica is going to be sharing her precipitous VBAC story where she ended up having a car birth because she didn't quite realize that she was in as much labor as she actually was. So it's a really exciting story. We're really excited for you to hear it. Welcome to the MamasteFit Podcast. This is Gina, perinatal fitness trainer and birth doula.
And this is Roxanne, labor and delivery nurse and student midwife.
And this is the MamasteFit Podcast, where we empower you on your prenatal fitness, birth, and postpartum return to fitness journey.
Our podcast shares how to move throughout your pregnancy to stay strong and comfortable. Pain is not a requirement of pregnancy. Understand the science of birth and how to approach recovery after birth.
We share our personal experiences as mothers navigating the stage of lives, plus our professional expertise as birth workers and fitness professionals.
Our goal is to help you feel confident as you navigate the perinatal timeframe for an empowering pregnancy, positive birth, and postpartum journey.
We are glad to have you with us on this journey and that you've chosen us to support you. Before we hear Monica's really exciting car birth story, I want to share that my book, Training for Two, is now available for pre-order. Training for Two comes out in September of 2024, and it's all about how you can use prenatal fitness to help support you throughout your pregnancy so we can have a strong pregnancy, you can have a pain-free pregnancy, and also to help prepare you for birth so that you can create more space within your pelvis to allow your baby to more easily navigate through. No promises, though, that doing the exercises in the book will result in a precipitous car birth, but you never know. You can grab the pre-order link down in the notes below. Welcome to the MamasteFit Podcast Birth Story Friday. In this episode, we have Monica here who's going to be sharing her birth story, so we're excited to have you here with us.
Thanks. I'm happy to spend some time with you guys.
So tell us, how did you prepare for birth? Like, what were you doing throughout your pregnancy, like in preparation for your labor and for your birth experience?
So I guess a good way to start this is I actually discovered you guys on Instagram back in 2021 when I was pregnant with my son. So that was towards the second half of the pandemic there, and our local hospital wasn't doing birth education classes live. And so I actually signed up for your prenatal exercise program and then also the birth class option. So my husband and I were able to watch all of the videos that you guys had created in lieu of not being able to do any of the birth education classes at our local hospital. So that was really helpful then. And then fast forward to my recent pregnancy with my daughter, I signed up for the exercise program using the Team Builder app. And then, of course, I was just online reading every birth story I could. With my son, I had a C-section. I was hoping for a VBAC with my daughter. And so I was just looking for any tidbits of information that could help me feel a little bit more confident pursuing that. And then also really trying to focus on where I felt with my son. I had progressed with my labor. He was so close to exiting and everything being good, but then his heart rate decelerated, and so we had to have an emergency C-section. And the doctors leading up to this VBAC attempt were very unsupportive. They basically said my pelvis was too small and that there was nothing I could do to change the anatomy of my pelvis. And so I latched on to every stretching exercise that you guys put out there that I could find. And every night during the third trimester, that's what I focused most on, was just opening up my pelvis and flexibility and that kind of thing.
So how was the end of your pregnancy? So I know for VBAC, sometimes there's a little bit of tension, like as you're kind of navigating the last few weeks with figuring out, like, are you going to go into spontaneous labor? Are you going to be induced? Are you scheduling a C-section? So how was the end of your pregnancy? And we can just go straight into your birth story as well.
So what was interesting was at the start of my pregnancy, so the doctor's office that I go to, there's actually 4 physicians there. There's 4 OBs. And so I asked all of them, what their thoughts were on VBAC, and they all seemed relatively supportive initially, except for one. And then towards the end, it felt like they were a little bit more hesitant. They just wanted to check on a lot of things. Like they wanted to do a growth ultrasound, and they wanted, there was just a lot of things that felt like they wanted to check on and maybe weren't as pro VBAC as I was hoping. But all of the content I could find online was super helpful in just kind of standing my ground and being firm. And here's my plan. Here's what I want to do. We did have a scheduled C-section date out because where we live, there was a solar eclipse and we were like peak totality. And there was like over 200,000 people coming into our community for that. And so the local hospital was not scheduling, intentionally, they were not scheduling any surgeries on that day.
Yeah.
And so they were like, that means we're trying to cram all of the other surgeries in the other 4 days of that week. And of course, that was the 1 week that my 41, like right after I was 41 weeks would have fell on. And so we went ahead and scheduled. And that night I went into labor.
The night that you scheduled it?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we had the conversation. I said, okay, fine. I'll schedule the C-section just to like make everybody happy after 41 weeks. And that night I went into labor spontaneously. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
It was like that was like a stress like taken off the table, so it might have been helpful.
Yeah. So her birth story, my labor started at night. And so I went to bed around 10 p.m. I woke up a little after 11. I felt some contractions and I was like, you know what? This is going to be a marathon. I learned my lesson from my son where I let anxiety get the best of me and I just was up immediately and I was doing ball circles and I was, overthinking everything. With this labor, I was like, I'm going to lay in bed for a while. And so I laid in bed for about an hour and then I was thinking to myself, these contractions they feel kind of strong. Am I just a wuss? Like, this is supposed to be early labor. Like, why am I struggling with this a little bit? So then I started to actually count and I used an app on my phone for that. And sure enough, they were lasting the full minute. But because of the intensity, I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to go. So my husband, he was working on a work project. So he had not gone to bed yet. So it's like midnight, right? Then I go to him and I'm like, I know you haven't slept yet, but tonight's the night. So I'm like, just go ahead and put the hospital bag in the van and, it'll be a while. And we have a toddler. So he's 2.5. And so I'm like, we had a go bag for him to go to my brother and sister-in-law's house. And I'm like, go ahead and put that in the van. I'm sure we can just drop it off in the morning on the way to the hospital. Like in my mind, I'm still convinced, like, we got lots of time here. And about 15 minutes later, so I just kept feeling like I had to go to the bathroom. I kept drinking lots of water to try to stay hydrated. So I kept feeling like I had to go to the bathroom. And it was just like I stood up and I felt a little bit nauseous and a little bit like lightheaded. And then it was just like the light switch went and we were just, and here's the other thing I forgot to mention. When I woke up with contractions, my thoughts around it were, okay, my body knows what to do. I'm going to trust my body. And as these contractions come, I just kind of viewed them as like, here's a wave of energy and I'm just going to ride this wave, right? And so this whole time, I think I'm just like riding this wave and I'm just accepting what's happening with my body. I think at some point though, in that bathroom, I started pushing. I don't know when exactly, but things got really intense. And that's when I was like, call my brother and sister-in-law. They need to get here quick. It was storming that night.
Oh, God.
So it's like,
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it's like 12:15, 12:30 at this point. And so I just labored on all fours in our master bathroom. And again, at some point, I had to have started pushing because maybe 30 minutes later, I made my way down to our downstairs area as we're trying to get everything out to our van to leave for the hospital. We're still waiting for my brother and sister-in-law to arrive. They live on the opposite side of the county, of course. And so I get downstairs and I'm laboring kind of on my knees and then I have my arms propped up on the couch. That's just what felt the most comfortable. And I remember you guys kind of talking about, kind of find, like, you'll know, like, your body will tell you what feels most comfortable or what feels most natural. And so kind of, again, I'm like, my body knows what it's doing. I'm riding these waves. until I pushed so hard that my water broke. And that's when I realized I had been pushing. Like, everything was painful, right? But like, I didn't realize I was not just riding the wave. I was like pushing with the wave. And that's when for me it got real. I was like, oh, we're not going to make it to the hospital. We're like this, we've got to go. Like, so my husband is so funny. I was like, grab every towel you can to put in the van to lay, on the passenger seat there. And, he's doing the best he can. He was actually very calm, like, throughout everything. And so then we're getting ready to leave. And I'm like, oh, we're supposed to call the hospital and tell them that labor has started. So can you call them? So he calls, and one of the nurses on the floor, she answers, and she's super kind. But one of the things she said was, but I did not consent to cervical checks the entirety of my pregnancy, like towards the end. I felt like I was going to latch onto a number and it was just going to like not help me progress. So I just opted out of cervical checks. So what she recommended, because I hadn't had a cervical check and they didn't know that if I was dilated or not, was to not push. And I was like, this freight train has left the station. There is no stopping this.
The brakes are broken.
No, that is not an option.
There is no stopping this now.
No, I did not tell her that though. And I was in a different world. And so we get off the phone, we get in the van, we're on our way to the hospital. And the quickest route to the hospital from our house is actually, there's a train tracks that we have to cross.
Oh no.
And wouldn't you know, at 1 o'clock in the morning, there's a train stopped on the tracks for servicing.
No.
Well, it's storming. The train is stopped on the tracks. And so, and here I am in the front passenger seat. I couldn't physically sit all the way down. So I'm kind of like, propped up a little bit to one side. No, I'm not.
That's a telltale sign. The baby is coming.
Yeah. So I'm not fully sideways, but I'm not upright either. So I'm at this weird diagonal, and I'm just yelling at him like, go around. So we have to go the opposite way. I mean, we didn't even make it that much further. As we're heading back the alternate route, I could feel her, like you guys talk about, and everybody else talks about, the ring of fire, right? And I could feel it. And I was like, because the whole time I'm screaming, she's coming. And then I was like, for real now, though. Like, this is about that.
I wasn't telling the truth then, but now for sure. Oh my gosh.
I was yelling at him and I was like, you're going to have to call 911 to have them send an ambulance. And they're going to have to meet us. They're going to have to meet us wherever we can stop. And so as we're driving and he's making the phone call, there's a Walmart on our side of town. And it was like this beacon of hope because it was like 1:30 in the morning and the lights were so bright in this Walmart parking lot. There wasn't a car in sight. It was just like there. And I was like, park at the Walmart parking lot. She's coming now. So he's calling like emergency dispatchers and they're on speakerphone through our van. So they're hearing me and all the noise I'm making, as well as I'm like yelling at him to park the van. And he's trying to tell them what's happening so that they can send emergency responders. And he parks and I'm just like, she's coming out of me. And he's like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me? And I'm like, you're going to have to catch her. Pull my pants down and catch her. And so he gets out of his side. He comes over to mine and he catches her. And it was like this wild moment where he like brings her up and he kind of hands her to me and I go to take her, but both of us are still holding on to her and we're looking at each other with this like facial expression, like this happened, like this really just happened. And there she was, and she was almost as stunned as we were that she was there so fast. And I looked, so we actually took a photo. I took a selfie with her in the van and the timestamp was 1:52 in the morning. So it was under 3 hours.
Oh.
Not at all what I thought. I thought we had all that time. We did not. But honestly, it was really beautiful. And, I'm so thankful everything worked out the way it did. My husband got back on his side of the car, and it was so funny because the dispatcher, like the 911 dispatcher, is still on the call. And so she's like, "Are you there? It's the baby breathing." Because the baby didn't really cry. Like she let out a couple of cries, but again, she was just looking at us like, whoa, that was a wild ride.
What just happened? What the hell just happened?
Yeah. And we're like, "Oh yeah, she's fine. She's breathing. I'm fine." And it was right around then where we see 4 cop cars come with their lights and sirens into the Walmart parking lot. And we're like, "Oh, they're here."
Walmart's probably like, "What is happening out there? There's no one. There's one car in the parking lot. Why are there so many cop cars? Ladies screaming. There's a bunch of cop cars."
Oh, man. But then the EMT crew arrived, and they were amazing. They were led by a young woman who was just like, "You do this and you do that. Hey, go grab this." And she was like, "Mama, you're doing great. Look at how well just so encouraging and so positive." And it was just a really, really cool experience. And so they take me and my daughter in the ambulance to the hospital, and my husband follows with our van. And they wheel me in right onto the floor, the labor and delivery floor in the hospital. And the nurse who took our phone call, she greets us and she's like, "Hi, I'm the nurse who took your call, blah, blah, blah." And so here I am holding this baby on my chest as they're wheeling me in. "Sorry, I pushed." And
so you didn't stop pushing is what you're telling me.
Did not. And she said, "Oh, yeah.
That's so funny. I'm sorry I pushed."
She was like, "Oh, honey, I knew by the sounds you were making, you were going to have that baby before you got here." So it was really great. And I think that the cherry on top for me was of the 4 doctors at the practice that I was seen at, the one that was the least supportive. He gave me an 18% chance of success for VBAC. He was the one that was on call. So he had to come in and check me out and hear the story and hear how I did it. And it was just like, I don't know. I just felt it was amazing. So.
Oh man, that's such an exciting story.
I know.
I don't think we've had a Carver
the edge of my seat.
Yet.
I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening next?
We're also diagonal on our seats.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny too because a couple of people asked. They were like, "Well, did your husband get to cut the cord?" Because we were in our van. And I was like, "Funny that you ask that," because the lead EMT, when she arrived, and she was like, "Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut the cord. Dad, do you want to do this?" He looked over at her and he said, "I think I've done enough."
Well, he doesn't need to cut the cord. He delivered the baby.
Yeah.
He's like, I need a moment here. So how is your postpartum? So you are wheeled into the hospital already giving birth. How was postpartum in the hospital and then transitioning back home?
So admittedly, I was very anxious about what postpartum would look like for me because with my son in 2021, I had terrible postpartum anxiety for almost that whole first year of his life. And I had very dark, intrusive thoughts, and I really struggled. This was the exact opposite. It was just like a dream. It really was. We arrived to the hospital physically postpartum, right? The difference between having an emergency C-section and then spontaneous, labor delivery in 3 hours, they were like, I was just hungry. I wanted to eat. I was like, can I get up and, go try to use the bathroom on my own? I was just, and maybe a little bit of that was still like the adrenaline, but even just like, I don't know, everything felt easier and more joyful. And I think part of that maybe was experience. Part of it was the circumstances, but I really embraced rest. I have not done my first postpartum workout, and I'm
That's okay.
almost 7 weeks postpartum. But I'm just soaking up soaking up the baby snuggles and enjoying, I don't know, this kind of transition season as we go from a family of 3 to a family of 4.
I love that. I really love that you're really emphasizing the rest now too. It's okay that you haven't got back to workouts yet. They will be there for you when you're...
I don't think I started until like 8 or 9 weeks, and it was pretty slow. So you're doing amazing.
Now I have started doing like some of the breathing and just like, focusing on tightening my pelvic floor with deep breaths. I remember with my son, the move that I loved the most, and I'm actually going to start doing that, is the dead bug.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I felt like that was like how I was able to connect with my core again. Like I could genuinely feel that with him. So that's definitely something that I'm going to work in there eventually. But
so do you have any tips for somebody that maybe realizes that their labor is going very fast? Like what advice would you give yourself if you can go back and be like, hey, by the way, prepare for this?
Interestingly enough, my mom, I talked to her that next day after my daughter was born, and she said, were you scared? And I was like, no, there was no time to be scared. And also I think I had done so much research ahead of time, and I had listened to so many birth stories ahead of time. There wasn't that fear there. And so I guess, one, don't let anxiety or fear, intrude on your moment, right? Trusting your body, but also like, make sure you've got those towels on hand, your hospital bag is packed, you've got your people on call, because we did everything we could once we realized it was happening quickly. But again, that whole first hour, I just laid in bed thinking, this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to be a while, I'm just going to rest on the front end because I know I'm not going to rest later. But definitely taking that time throughout your pregnancy to gather as much information, research, prep, plan as much as you can. I think it was maybe Gina who you actually did a reel where it was like what to do if you do actually have a hospital birth or something. And you remember, or a car birth. And I remember.
Oh yeah, that we did that one.
Yeah, and I remember you mentioning the towels, and was basically like, ultimately, somebody's going to catch your baby, even if it's you. And so I kept thinking that when we were in the car, and I'm like, if we don't pull over quick enough, like I might have to catch this baby, which is fine. Like, I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes. But yes, the preparation, I think, is what changed. With my son in 2021, I did a lot of preparation, but what I focused mostly on was strength. And I did not focus on, I focused on physical strength. I didn't focus on flexibility and really working on movement, like how to create space in my pelvis, what movements did that. And I also didn't focus on like the mental part of it. Like those contractions come on and they're so strong, and you don't really know like how long are you going to be in labor and when is this going to end. And I think also just my mentality had changed in preparation too. So I would encourage that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Monica, for coming on the podcast and sharing your very exciting birth story. I was, again, on the edge of my seat. Like, are they going to make it? Like,
I knew they weren't going to make it. As soon as she was like, we were pushing on home, I was like, this is a car birth.
I'm like, she's going to have a home birth.
This is a car birth story.
But thank you so much again for, one, trusting us to support you throughout your pregnancy, through 2 pregnancies now, trusting us to come onto the podcast to share your birth story. We really, really appreciate your time and your support.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys for all the content you put out there. I also love how genuine and just real you guys are. Like, I don't know. I live every day in my workout clothes and my hair is pulled back and a ponytail. And I just love how real and authentic you guys are. And so, and just knowledgeable too, of course. But I appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will continue to do my mom bun, the no makeup and just workout clothes all the time.
I don't know how to do makeup. I've watched so many YouTube videos now, and
It's not who I am. So I've fully embraced that. Thank you for accepting us for who we are as well.
I recommend you guys to everybody I talk to. I'm like, hey, if you're doing any preparation, these are the people you want to follow.
Hi, my name is Lakeisha Murphy Spencer. I am a certified nurse midwife in the Central Carolina area, and I recommend MamasteFit to so many of my patients because it's so important to get that functional fitness base in. They are amazing at explaining the physiology of different changes that happen in pregnancy, before, during, and after birth, and they are a great way to reconnect with your body and push yourself to a new level as a mom or a mom-to-be.
So if you think that your labor is progressing a little bit on the quick side, as Monica was saying, it is important to be prepared beforehand for the potential of a fast labor. Now, most of us will have probably just a normal length labor, but you never know. You never know. You might have something super quick. So Roxanne, what are your top tips for somebody who is preparing for birth with the potential that your baby might fall out of your body in the car?
And I think that this is important because sometimes it could be that you didn't have a precipitous birth, but maybe you stayed home for like just a smidge longer than maybe you should have, even if you're like 5 minutes away. Like,
or you have a train that blocked your path
or
to
you
the
have
hospital.
like a train or like a car accident is on the way. So like your little 5-minute trip turns into longer and then you have a baby in the car. Or if you know that you have like an hour-long car ride, like labor can progress very quickly from like getting into the car at that beginning of the hour to when you arrive at the hospital. So we always recommend having a go bag in both cars or however many cars you have, because you never know which car you actually are going to take to the hospital, like in the moment. Like you might be out at Walmart when you start going into labor and you don't have the car that had the original go bag. So I just recommend putting it in all of the cars that you possibly could drive. And what you're going to do in just like a garbage bag or a shopping bag, you just need towels. More than one preferably, but at least one towel. Some baby blankets, because after you dry baby off, having like a softer baby blanket can be really nice. And then I normally just recommend a Ziploc bag, because just in case the placenta delivers, you can put the placenta in a Ziploc bag so it's not just like hanging out on your floor. And then if you have it, they're like the doggy pee pads, but not the actual doggy pee pad ones. They're like just little pads that'll collect as much fluid as possible, because birth is not clean. There's lots of fluids involved with birth. So having things that can like absorb fluids can be beneficial. Putting that like just all over your car. I used the pee pod mats, which is like a reusable pad that you put on like your kid's bed when they're potty training. It absorbs a ton of fluid. So I put that in my car seat for our hour-long drive, because my husband was deathly afraid that we were going to have a car baby and it was forever unclean. So like it's a huge pad that covered the seat and the floor a little bit, just in case like a baby shot out, it would have collected a lot of fluid. But you don't need to buy one of those pads unless you like already have it. So the doggy pee pads would just work just as well. And put that in just a shopping bag, put it in the front seat, or like where you can, or your spouse can easily grab it in the case of an emergency. I think I saw a reel where someone grabbed like a sweatshirt that just happened to be in the back seat when their baby was born. I was like, this is what you need. A little bag, a little go bag. You could use a towel, easily grab, throw it on the baby, good to go. And with the go bag, like if you have a car birth, people are always like, well, what do you do with the umbilical cord? People are always like, well, like, do you need scissors in this go bag to like cut the umbilical cord? No. You don't need to mess with the umbilical cord unless at some point, it's super rare, like if the umbilical cord ruptures like during the delivery process, then you can use like a shoe tie or something to like just tie off the side that's attached to baby. You can order like the umbilical cord clamps just in case that happens, but it is super rare. So the likelihood of you needing to do that is not, but some people like to be prepared just in case. But otherwise, just leave it alone. The baby can stay attached until you arrive at the hospital.
Other things that I would recommend in preparation for your birth, especially if you do have to wait for people to get to your home to watch older children, or if you do have a long car drive, is to have labor and delivery's phone number saved into your phone so it's easy to access, so you can let them know, hey, we're on our way and I am pushing And if they're like, stop pushing, you can be like, I can't. And another thing is to know when should you call an ambulance. And so typically what I recommend to my doula clients, because a lot of them do have about an hour drive to the hospital that a lot of them like to go to, is if you feel like you're pushing, just keep driving. Like usually it might take some time. You might still make it. Roxanne pushed for like 40 minutes from our house to the hospital and still had like 40 minutes before her baby was born with her first.
Yeah.
Now, if you see baby head, pull over. If you feel that ring of fire, like you'll know, like there's a lot of pressure.
We have no time.
There.
The time is
at that point, I would say you should probably pull over, and your partner needs to stop driving, stop filming, and help you deliver this baby. And preferably also call an ambulance at this point. If you're still at home and you feel like you're pushing, it's kind of up to you to decide, do I think I'm going to make it or not? If you have an hour drive to your hospital, you're probably not going to make that. And so it's kind of like situation dependent. So this is where it's really helpful to be able to call your labor and delivery to ask their opinion, because if there's maybe a closer birth location that you can go to, you can go there instead, or potentially just wait at home for EMT to come to you, because that would be much safer than trying to drive while simultaneously delivering your baby.
And cleaner for your car.
So we can't quite plan how fast our labors will go, and sometimes we can't quite plan where our babies will be born. So it is important to be prepared. So if you have older children, ensuring that you have a childcare plan for who is going to be watching these children, when are they going to come, how can you get in contact with them? Because a lot of us will go into labor at night, and so it can be helpful to make sure that you can contact them wherever they go. I had one birth where the dad had to run out of the house and go bang on their window to wake them up to come get their other child, and like, we're going to have a baby on the floor. So having a plan for any older children that you have in the home. The next thing is to make sure that you have a go bag, especially if you have a longer hospital drive. So if your hospital is more than 30 minutes away, I would say having a go bag in your car in case baby does come a little bit faster than you were expecting. Make sure you got labor and delivery's number saved in your phone, in both of your phones, to make sure it's really easy to access in case you need to ask for any advice on, should we even go? Should we just stay here? Like, what is your recommendation? Use them as a resource during that time. Like, you don't have to try to figure it all out in that moment. And then if you see hair, or if you see a head, because some babies are bald, stop driving, or just go ahead and just call an ambulance and ask for assistance. You can also ask for assistance prior to this if you feel like this baby is coming and I do not want to relocate myself. So those would be like our tips to prepare for the potential of a really fast or unexpected birth location. But hopefully you don't need those advice and you give birth where you intend. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you want more support throughout your pregnancy, join our online prenatal fitness programs. We offer our prenatal fitness programs in 2 formats. Monica did our Team Builder app-based program, which is a list of exercises with demo videos, and this is self-paced workouts. We have full-length workouts for that, and then also mini in case you're short on time. In addition, we have our on-demand program, which are full-length workout videos that you can follow and work out with at the same time. And both programs are incorporate strength exercises to help you stay comfortable throughout your pregnancy, while also incorporating a lot of birth preparation exercises to relax your pelvic floor, to create more space within your pelvis, to help you prepare for birth.
And if you're looking for a childbirth education course to help prepare for labor and birth, check out our online childbirth education course where we discuss the science of birth. You have lifetime access to the course, so if you buy it in one pregnancy, you can use it again in subsequent pregnancies, like Monica did. We cover labor positions as well as what your partner can do during labor, and we even discuss both vaginal and C-section births so you can be prepared for both options. And you can check out all of our offerings on our website and use code STORY10 to get 10% off any of our courses. And our prenatal fitness and childbirth education course can be bundled together to get an additional 15% off. And then with this 10% off, it's pretty much free.
So thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week.